Thank you everyone for attending today's town hall meeting. My name is General Jeff. I am the chair of the Skid Row Neighborhood Council Formation Committee. We are partnering with DMH, and we've also included SRO Housing Corporation because this is their venue, the James Wood Community Center right here in Skid Row. We are very, very excited about this meeting. As you can see, people will still be filing in as we begin, but one thing about Skid Row Neighborhood Council Formation Committee, we're all about being prompt. When we say we're going to start at 1, we're going to start right on time. So thank you for your patience in terms of the 5-minute delay, but we're about to begin. This is a history in the makings. This is a very, very important town hall meeting / listening session because it's all about the community being a part of the conversation. And what the conversation is today is about mental health. And people looking for an agenda. There is no agenda. It's whatever issues that we, the people, are concerned with. And so at some point in time, we're going to open up the floor, and everyone that wants to speak and share their thoughts will be able to have the microphone and speak. Of course, we're going to have a featured keynote speaker. Dr. Jonathan Sherin is the director of the Department of Mental Health, and we will be inviting him to embrace us with his, bless us with his presence shortly. Just start off, we have a couple of ground rules. We're here in Skid Row. We're so thankful that you're here. The restrooms are to my right, to your left. There is no gender neutral restroom, so you have to make your own decision if it's male or female. We have refreshments provided by the Department of Mental Health in the back. Help yourself at any time. We hope that you put your cell phones on vibrate so that we don't interrupt the speakers. And before we start, I would like to know if there are any questions right now. Great. One, yes.
Are you licensed?
We have yes, we are. And so, thank you, Lindsay. We have Bobby Buck, who is live streaming. If there's anyone, he's a community videographer in Skid Row. We also have other folks with their cameras. I don't know if anyone's live streaming, but if anyone is uncomfortable with being filmed or live streamed, we will understand, and we just notify you that this will be live streamed. If you're uncomfortable to the point where you don't want to be filmed, you may not want to attend this meeting. But it's very, very important information. We hope that you will stay and make that sacrifice to hear the information. Before I really open up the official meeting, I want to bring up Reba Stevens, who is a tremendous person in all things, not only mental health, but just as a community activist in her own right. And I don't think she needs no introduction, but she has a couple of important announcements that she wants to make. And so I'm going to introduce Reba Stevens.
Thank you, General Jeff, and thank you for the space. Isn't this a nice space to kind of come together and get some information and perhaps share some? I want to introduce to you and tell you about a couple of upcoming events. One is the Color Me Trauma. That's going to happen next Wednesday, November the 7th. At Mount Tabor Missionary Baptist Church. So why is this event important? Well, it's about the colors of trauma, the many colors of trauma that we experience, and it's sometimes trauma that happens before it happens. And so that's one of the events, but more importantly, I want to share with you about an Empowerment Congress Cafe that's going to happen on the 16th. How many of you are familiar with Empowerment Congress? Okay, I see a few hands. So how many of you are familiar with Supervisor Mark Willie Thomas? Yay! So Supervisor Mark Willie Thomas, for over 25 years now, has Empowerment Congress. And so this is one of 10 committees, the Mental Health Committee, that will be showcasing the Department of Mental Health. So what's beautiful about that is that today you are very fortunate to spend some time with Dr. Jonathan Sherin, our new director of the Department of Mental Health, who I happen to admire a lot because I'll go back to this particular flyer, this event, which is under the Cal Mesa funding. It was the mini grants that went out across the county for many of us to apply, and some of us were able to actually be able to highlight, bring people together, communities together, to put on an event to talk about some of the issues or concerns that we currently have in the communities in which we reside. So back to the Empowerment Congress Cafe, which we want each and every one of you to come. Now today you're going to hear from Dr. Jonathan Sherin, but what's important to me as an end user of mental health services, one who's experienced homelessness and many colors of trauma, is that we are showcasing the new DMH. So what's new about it? It's not just new because we have Dr. Jonathan Sherin. It's because the mission, the vision, and his values, his goals are going to actually be in a position for you to almost touch him, to be more aware of what is happening, and to meet those very important people who will be providing it. So with all of the new changes around LA County DMH, I would encourage you to attend on November the 16th, the Empowerment Congress Mental Health Committee's Cafe that features all of the wonderful things that the Department of Mental Health is currently doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita Stevens. I just want to make another announcement that there's a sign-in sheet that's going around somewhere, and those that have not signed it, please sign in, because we want to keep documentation of our history in terms of the Skid Row Neighborhood Council Formation Committee. Those that know me, I see a lot of faces I don't know, but those that know me know I'm a very outspoken community activist first and foremost here in Skid Row for the last 12 years. And I'm not going to get into my whole resume. I see MC just walked in with an old rap hip-hop cover. And I used to do some rap albums. I don't know why. He said he was going to bring some some album covers. MC, no, I already signed those. So, but anyway, yeah, that guy, love that guy. So, but in saying that I'm an outspoken community activist, I just want to be clear that in Skid Row, there are a lot of issues that are unaddressed, as many of you are aware of, but a lot of them that you are unaware of. And so, my heart is troubled right now because I really have pertinent issues that I need to be focused on, specifically as it relates to housing. There are a lot of housing issues, not only those that are unhoused, but those that are actually housed. I was contacted, I had a meeting last week with 3 females in a Skid Row landlord, Skid Row housing provider. I won't say the name, but they're having issues in their building, and it's women's issues. And you know, I really need to be meeting with them. At least some of them said they would be here today. I don't see them, but as soon as this meeting ends, I must rush over there, and it's pertinent that they would talk to me because there are issues of violence, there's issues of non-stop drug use in their building. They don't have peace of mind, and I could go on and on and on. I don't want to pull the mood down because I know we're all excited to hear the rock star of DMH coming up pretty soon. But you know, there is a reality there. So as an outspoken community activist, I'm highly concerned for my fellow residents. And so in saying that, I got a phone call a couple of nights ago, and I got ripped a new one because, you know, in our official flyer, we have SRO Housing Corporation as one of the logos, as one of the partners for this event. So, you know, and there are issues, no one's perfect. You know, we have issues with all the housing providers in Skid Row. We have issues with a lot of the infrastructure that's here. And so I just want to put that out there that, yeah, there's issues. That's why we're here. But today we're only focused on mental health. You know, when the mic goes around, sure, you know, there are people that want to say, hey, I'm not housed, I have this issue, that we hope that you keep it limited in your scope to mental health only. That said, moving forward, so as the chair of the Skid Row Neighborhood Council Formation Committee, we have a couple of announcements about our formation committee. Those that don't know, there is currently, we're in the process of forming a neighborhood council for Skid Row specifically, for those that don't know. Last year we had an election that was overseen by the city. We wound up, technically we lost by 60 votes, 6-0. We're in the process of suing the city of Los Angeles because the election was, let's say there were some discrepancies. And so where we are now is we have our next court date is in the first quarter of 2019, and this effort is led by Skid Row residents because we feel like just like this town hall meeting is important, this is an example of what the Skid Row Neighborhood Council can and will do to address the issues in our community. And so we're gonna fight if we take it all the way to the Supreme Court to get this Skid Row Neighborhood Council. Another quick announcement is the City of Los Angeles Department of Rec and Parks. They just notified us yesterday that there will be convening after, and it took us 4 years to fight for this, but there will be a Skid Row Parks Advisory Board, a Skid Row path. And so it's unique because we have one park right behind me, San Julian Park. We also have another park, Gladys Park, which is 6 blocks from here. And there are 2 pocket parks, and Rec and Parks said they don't do park advisory boards for pocket parks, but you know, I hit them up 4 years ago and said, well, can we like to identify himself? And again, as Rita mentioned, this new DMH, you know, that's the energy that they're bringing. This gentleman has been with DMH for 3 months, and so without further ado, I'll bring up Anthony Ruffin.
My name is Anthony Ruffin, and I work in the Department of Mental Health. And I had the pleasure of meeting General Jeff probably about 2 weeks ago. And we sat down and we talked about the community and the Department of Mental Health and what we're doing down here on Skid Row to address some of the issues on Skid Row for our outreach efforts with our multidisciplinary teams. And I was able to tell General Jeff that we're down here in the community. We care about the community, and we care about the people that are living in the community, especially on the streets, the severely mentally ill. I also informed General Jeff that currently our teams are working with 19 individuals on Skid Row that come from LAPD referrals, C3 referrals, DHS referrals, and other referrals within the community. And our primary purpose is to be down here on the street 6 days a week doing outreach and engagement with the most vulnerable people on Skid Row. And through the efforts, through our efforts on doing outreach and our collaboration with the city, our goal is to be in the community, outreach the community, and build community. That's our primary goal down here. And it starts with us doing outreach to the most vulnerable on the streets. It's not only my vision, but I believe it's also Dr. Sherin's vision for us to be in the community and building the community. And we're also working with downtown mental health and working in relations with downtown mental health, where we can also walk some of these individuals into downtown mental health to get appointments sometimes on the same day. So the team has been down here doing excellent work, and I just want to say thank you, team. Also, if there's anybody in the audience today that needs an appointment at Downtown Mental Health, please come see me after the meeting, and I can connect you with Downtown Mental Health and get an appointment scheduled for you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony Ruffin. And I also understand that DMH has counselors if anyone is feeling the need to speak to someone in private right now. That's the type of availability that the new DMHs are undergoing right now. And so they've got several staff that is willing to speak with anyone in private again. in private if they have any issues that they would like to discuss with the healthcare professional. Thank you. And so now, getting to our main event, I'll let him introduce himself. We're very, very excited to have him here in Skid Row, and that's why you all are here. I'm sure it's not just to see me in the suit, but thank you very kind. But he's also in a suit, and without further ado, we're just getting right to it. Dr. Jonathan Sherin, the director of the Department of Mental Health. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm gonna have a seat here for a little bit. I may just get up at some point. Couple things. I think all of our hearts feel the pain of Skid Row and other parts of our county and our state and our country, and certainly in Skid Row we have a humanitarian crisis. And I would say that there's I believe, an unusual amount of alignment right now here to do something about it, to try to figure out the paradigms that will move the system. I gotta tell you, I do give a lot of keynotes. I'm not here to give a keynote. I'm thrilled to be here, General Jeff, and I'm so honored that you invited me and that we've had a chance to connect. But at the end of the day, I'm here with big ears to listen, and it's one of the things that I think that government and bureaucratic entities need to do better, because the real engineers are the people who are wanting and needing help. I'll talk about anything I'll talk about whatever you ask me. I certainly have a number of things that I'm really proud about with the department and the direction that we're moving. I also will say that this department has, I got here 2 years ago. Actually, today's my 2-year anniversary. And I joke about it. I mean, I can't tell if it feels like 2 months or 20 years. And yeah, I do like to sleep and I do like to surf, but I'm not doing a lot of either. But this department really, which I've gotten to know better and better, and I think if I stayed here for 30 years, I would continue to learn every day. It's a steep learning curve, and it's a long, steep learning curve. But it over the past 10 years has grown in leaps and bounds. It's had many requirements foisted upon it. It's had a lot of money that has been allocated to deliver care, and it's not easy in a bureaucratic system to grow as much as it's grown. And coming in with fresh eyes, I can see how there are parts of the department that we haven't had the time to catch up to create, a super efficient and effective service in all ways. And that's really what we're doing. And that said, I would love it if all of the people who work in the Department of Mental Health would raise your hand high and proud. I want to thank you, and I want to salute you all, and I want to recognize that we're going through a lot of change, and it's not easy. And I thank you for tolerating it and helping to drive it, because we have a mission, we have a calling, and it's on us to do that as an organization and to do it as a partner with, in the largest sense, and most importantly, in partnership with the people that we're trying to help. The other thing that I'll say, aside from that this isn't for me to kind of listen, is that mental health, I look at mental health as something that we need to optimize for people. I don't look at mental illness as something that we need to treat. We all need to recognize that different people are suffering at different times. Some people suffer more mentally, some people more physically. There's lots of different things. Some people suffer with substance abuse. Some folks suffer with the full gamut, including obviously homelessness. But we really want to move the narrative to one where we're optimizing the mental health of everybody. And we also recognize that it's not just mental illness, it's the stresses of life and the traumas of life that we need to deal with, we need to attend to, and to recognize. So General Jeff, when he says we want to talk about mental health, we do want to talk about mental health, but we also recognize that there's so many factors that impact an individual at any given time, and we need to recognize that, and whether this department can do it, because in many ways we can. And I spent a lot of my time battling with the state and the federal government about trying to create more flexibility in the type of work that we do, our ability to engage with individuals, and how we use our resources. But if we can't do it, we want to commit to getting the care, the services, the resources to people who have those needs, recognizing that it requires holistic opportunities to live a whole life. So, and Jeff, unless you want me to come up here and do some, Jeff? No, it's cool. I'm saying, unless you really want me to break down on some keynote, I'm here to listen, and I'm hoping in the context of listening and being asked questions, I can talk about a lot of the different things that are being worked on.
Well, I'm just going to start it out right now. We had a meeting one-on-one in June. I asked you directly. I know you established you're a down to earth type of guy, and I'm a very aggressive community activist, if you will. And so we're going to start this conversation off knowing that DMH's annual budget is $3 billion. I'm just going to put it out there that we need that commitment from you to create a brand new funded stream of $100 million in Skid Row right now. Are they going to make that commitment, sir?
Well, first of all, Jeff, it's not $3 billion. It's more like $2.5 billion. And if you want what we can do, and I will do, and I'm hoping someone can, maybe you can help if things that come up, just keeping track, is we can find out how much of our budget is actually focused on Skid Row. And I can also tell you that commitment is rapidly going to increase. It's increasing as we speak, and that's not going to stop.
Hi, Kenneth. Does this work? Okay, hi, yes. Boy, General Jeff, we go way back. But anyway, words are so important, labels are so important. You told me on Facebook you were General Store Jeff because I asked you what war you were waging. See, names. Skid Row stands for our dirt gutter, you skid logs, yeah. Bad name, bad history. So, but there is a City Center West Neighborhood Council annex. So anyway, lots of things going on here. I'm working with Gavin Newsom, hopefully he'll become governor, and the developers and housing. I'm an interior designer with architecture. All kinds of problems going on there, lots of corruption. I moved here, I was in a sober living for a year. $4,000 a month. They're unregulated, they regulate themselves. See, it's not good, not good. All kinds of corruption. There's all kinds of corruption going on here in Skid Row. Lots of it, not from the top. And I'm here to help. I have to reach out to old friends from San Francisco because LA is so corrupt. My friend Yo Yoshida tried to do an application for all the charities here. He couldn't do it, he left. He told me to run, Kendrick. Run, leave LA, it's so corrupt. So, be careful of names and labels, and I'd encourage you to go say General Store Jeff or something else because you sound a lot like Trump, and that scares me because someone that looks like me, I lived a few blocks away, and boy, I didn't have a current ID. My ID had expired in the Ronald Reagan building, and 3 Latino cops threw me up against the wall. I thought it was that they threw a terrorist. They pressed a terrorist button. And yeah, so I know what it feels like to be a minority on a daily basis walking around here, and so, I've just given a ticket for jaywalking. I was running across the street and the light was yellow by a big old black motorcycle cop. So anyway, I kind of understand what's, that was just a few blocks away across from the library. Had I done that here, no one would probably deny, but up there. So I understand where you're coming from. But again, words are extremely important, and you're also 30% more likely to go schizophrenic here. In metropolitan areas, there are studies about that. I'm a designer, architecture, star apartments, bad architecture. I don't know, John Kerry, I have the book, Design for Good. I'll be getting Melinda Gates involved and all the bigger people, because LA has been corrupt for over 100 years with the auto industry, and I know I'm monopolizing the mic here. Sorry about that. But I got Randy, he's the secretary of the LA Baha'is, who do the Skid Row Carnival of Love, Invasion for One Day of Love. Bad ideas. It's not that I'll say, but I'm trying to work on that one as well. But people that don't live here don't understand what's happening. They feel good because they come here and volunteer for one day. And they go, oh, I'm doing something good, without understanding the corruption and structure that's going on. So I'm trying to be neutral, but I understand your anger and frustration. But at the same time, please don't endanger me walking on the street because of the way I look, because I'm here to help everyone. And I know the mental health, I've gotten much worse in the last 2 years. My medications have had to get a lot stronger, but Depakote's not the answer. You got it? Yeah, and LVMH, Louis Vuitton, or White Chandon. Luxury goods, alcohol. And the pharmaceutical industries here, they need to be kept in check. Sorry for monopolizing.
Okay, we have another question. Can we please keep the questions down to 2 minutes? So everyone can have an opportunity to ask their question and raise their concerns. Thank you.
Hi, so I just got back from college. I grew up in South Central, and I'm actually working on an article that I pitched about homelessness, specifically in residential neighborhoods in South Central. And I wanted to know if you had any comments about homelessness and like tent encampments in residential neighborhoods. It appears as though, you know, some of the homelessness from down here might be getting pushed up into the residential neighborhoods. And the fact that it's South Central, there's like less community oversight. And so, yeah, I wanted to know if you had any comments in regards to tent encampments, homelessness in residential neighborhoods of South Central. And is there any preventative measures that are happening? Because I see like the street sweeper people come, but you know, it's the people are homeless, so they're gonna set the tents back up. But yeah, thank you so much.
Well, you know, one thing that the county and interdepartmental, what I'm very focused on with the department is making sure that we are deploying our resources, our staff, our expertise to the most vulnerable people in Los Angeles County, and particularly those who are homeless or in the other institutions and asylums of our time, which is the streets, the hospitals, and the jail. And frankly, the child welfare system in some cases. Those are the areas where we want to make sure that we're applying our influence to help people have a chance at flourishing in life. There's no simple answer. If there was a simple answer to any of this, we wouldn't have a crisis on our hands. I'd like to think that some of the efforts that are being put forth by the county are going to help get those who don't have serious mental illness out of homelessness towards productivity in life so that they can sustain their own lives and their own independence. When it comes to those with serious mental illness, there are a number of things that we're doing. And we're actually we're trying to build them in Skid Row and then out to the rest of the county around I'm just going to tell you about a couple of things and then I'll stop talking. The first is that when we have someone that's really suffering in the street and unstable and maybe needing a hospitalization and certainly not a trip to jail, we're creating our own first responder ambulance type service. We literally just got approval very recently to fund what we call the equivalent of a mental health ambulance service that will have vehicles that are going to be comfortable, unlike a police car where oftentimes you can be handcuffed or put in the back and treated in a way as if you're a criminal. And then also the actual ambulances. Ambulances have certain requirements where you have to be put on a gurney and strapped in and put in an ambulance. We don't believe that that's dignified. We think it can be traumatizing. So we're creating an ambulance service. We have 2 vehicles and They'll hopefully be something like the big Sprinter vans that you see. They're going to have in them up here leading as an engagement agent, as well as nursing, social work, and psychiatry support, whether it's there in person or whether it's through telepsychiatry, to engage people and then again care for them in the street, and if needed bring them in a respectful and dignified way to a hospital and sit with them until they can get into the hospital. Another thing I'll just tell you about, and Anthony Ruffin came up here and talked, and Anthony is a very, very special man with a heart the size of a basketball. And he is helping us develop kind of a different ethos in the way that we do street engagement. It's engagement of someone who is isolated, who may have been traumatized by the system, is not necessarily going to want to just say, okay, yeah, help me. You got to build that trust. You got to understand the person's what Anthony likes called their ecosystem, and become a part of that ecosystem. And then when you do engage that individual, follow through and make sure that they're going to get the care that they need and the housing that they're going to need. That's our home team. Do we have some home team in the house? Other than Anthony, there we are. Thank you. This is a small team. It's a bit of a boutique program in the department, but we aim to make it a pioneer program so that Department of Mental Health. The home, it's called the home team, and it does the type of outreach that I'm describing. Correct, Department of Mental Health. And it's a small team, and I was saying we want to make it a premier team for the department that isn't just 15 to 20 people. That's like 100 people that is attending to the hot spots of our county, where there's folks who are homeless and have serious mental illness, and then we'll do that ongoing engagement that's required. I believe that it was about a month or 6 weeks ago that we had an individual who was suffering and really was needing and actually wanting medication, and we delivered a long-acting injectable medication to someone who is improving, and likely over time, if we're relentless about our outreach and our help, will then be more amenable to getting care, getting housing, and on the road to recovery. I'm just going to stop there because I did come here to listen.
I have a question. First of all, thank you, and for everybody who works in the mental health department. I am a tenant here downtown, here at Skid Row. I've been through the whole process of Skid Row. I'm in housing now at the BNI. I'm a TAC there. I'm a tenant advisory council there, so I help hand out food. My question to you, and anyone else that can hear me, is that I was a victim of an assault 2 days ago. I went through all the process that I need to go through, like security for SRO. I went to SRO corporate, and the gentleman that assaulted me was a hate crime who beat me and dragged me through our building, and everything that I tried to do, either get the person out or get him locked up, nothing or no one came to my aid. Even to this moment, I'm still scared to go back to my building. Security's going to help me because they have to pass out food. And there's a lot of people within my building who have mental issues, which I am also one of them. But I'm also a gay male. There are people that are living in my building who are fearing for their life. There's deaths that happened in my building that have been unsolved, and we haven't had a manager in that building for 3 months, nor have we had any caseworkers or mental health or anybody come in that building to see about anyone. I'm very happy that everything is moving forward in this community. That's a wonderful thing. But as a person who's trying to get their life together, I'm very grateful and thankful for everything that everybody has done down here. There's still a voice that I think is not being heard. So I'm here to express that and see what can be done to the people that are already in buildings who are running up against issues from people who have been housed. There's nobody there to watch or maintain or help, or I'm at a loss, and I'm scared and I don't know what to do about it, so I'm here.
The first thing I'll say is I'm really sorry to hear about your recent trauma, and I can imagine that it must be really challenging to be in a place where you're living and then to be scared to go back there, and that is not acceptable. I don't know who, is whether or not the county itself is funding those programs. Could be a combination of multiple agencies that are doing that. We are making our best efforts to ensure that the places where people are going to live, whether it's for short or long term, have the adequate services, have the security and safety of their own nest, which people need. You need to feel safe to recover. So what I would add, and it sounds to me like what you're facing is actually, at the end of the day, requires a law enforcement activity and an identification of a person that obviously injured you, physically and emotionally. I'd like to think that that's not something that happens, but I've been around a little bit, and I know that the conditions are tough. They're tough when you're in a building, and they're tough when you're in the streets. And I would say that those are both unacceptable. If you wanted to give a name to one of our staff, we can certainly find out about the particular program and how we can facilitate the investigation of what happened to you and try to ensure that you have a safe.
Came back out. He lives 2 doors away from me in the building. He's in the building. I spoke with security just before I came to this meeting. They said that he's allowed to be in that room. But what if, because it's a communal bathrooms and kitchen, what if I go to the bathroom and he chokes me out again and drags me down the stairs? Like, they can't do anything. I feel like unless I die, something.
Joseph here at the police station. Still there, restraining order.
I have restraining
order. Yeah, we'll talk to him some more, but Dion Joseph is a great guy in the police station here, so I'm with you there. But I just try to make friends with the police here. They're great people. That's what I have to do. So, yeah, I'm just on Broadway. Oh yeah, no, there is. I agree. But your first steps are right now, for instant help. I agree. I'm not arguing with that.
Okay, hold on. We want to keep this civil and orderly in terms of the mic, because we're recording, so you are speaking off mic. So, but I have someone else from Downtown Mental Health that wants to speak specifically to this gentleman's issues. Stacey Williams.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Stacey Williams. I'm the district chief for Service Area 4, which includes the Skid Row area. And I just wanted to reach out to this gentleman. Please see me when we're all done, and I want to make sure that we get you the assistance that you need immediately. And for anyone else that has any issue of that kind, Jeff and I are going to see what we can do to be involved as far as providing some kind of assistance for safety in the housing community, which I know is a very serious problem. So please see me after and let me.
Thank you, Stacey.
My name is Wendy. I used to work for the Department of Mental Health for about 10 years, right before you came on. And now I work for DHS. And my question to you is, can we consider revamping the intake process for the Department of Mental Health? And what I mean by that is that too much of the burden is placed on the client needing services to come in, because as a worker, you always obviously have to meet medical necessity and get all of the information, but a lot of our clients that are needing services can't express the quote-unquote language that the worker is needing and looking for, because they don't have the words, they don't have the terminology that the worker needs to hear for them to be able to access services. And this is kind of what I've been finding, like, department-wide, because I worked at Downtown Mental Health Center and Arcadia Mental Health Center, and so I have a good feel of different clinics, but this is kind of department-wide, that too much of the burden is placed on the client to quote-unquote hit those keywords.
County and interdepartmental. What I'm very focused on with the department is making sure that we are we are deploying our resources, our staff, our expertise to the most vulnerable people in Los Angeles County, and particularly those who are homeless, or in the other institutions and asylums of our time, which is the streets, the hospitals, and the jail. And frankly, the child welfare system in some cases. Those are the areas where we want to make sure that we're applying our influence to help people have a chance at flourishing in life. There's no simple answer. If there was a simple answer to any of this, we wouldn't have a crisis on our hands. I'd like to think that some of the efforts that are being put forth by the county are going to help get those who don't have serious mental illness out of homelessness towards productivity in life so that they can sustain their own lives and their own independence. When it comes to those with serious mental illness, there are a number of things that we're doing, and we're actually we're trying to build them in Skid Row and then out to the rest of the county around I'm just going to tell you about a couple of things and then I'll stop talking. The first is that when we have someone that's really suffering in the street and unstable and maybe needing a hospitalization, and certainly not a trip to jail, we're creating our own first responder ambulance type service. We literally just got approval very recently to fund what we call the equivalent of a mental health ambulance service that will have vehicles that are going to be comfortable, unlike a police car where oftentimes you can be handcuffed or put in the back and treated in a way as if you're a criminal. And then also the actual ambulances. Ambulances have certain requirements where you have to be put on a gurney and strapped in and put in an ambulance. We don't believe that that's dignified. We think it can be traumatizing. So we're creating an ambulance service. We have 2 vehicles, and they'll hopefully be something like the big Sprinter vans that you see. They're going to have in them up here leading as an engagement agent, as well as nursing, social work, and psychiatry support, whether it's there in person or whether it's through telepsychiatry, to engage people and then again care for them in the street, and if needed bring them in a respectful and dignified way to a hospital and sit with them until they can get into the hospital. Another thing I'll just tell you about, and Anthony Ruffin came up here and talked, and Anthony is a very, very special man with a heart the size of a basketball. And he is helping us develop kind of a different ethos in the way that we do street engagement. Engagement of someone who is isolated, who may have been traumatized by the system, is not necessarily going to want to just say, okay, yeah, help me. You got to build that trust. You got to understand the person's what Anthony likes called their ecosystem, and become a part of that ecosystem. And then when you do engage that individual, follow through and make sure that they're going to get the care that they need and the housing that they're going to need. That's our home team. Do we have some home team in the house? Other than Anthony, there we are. Thank you. And this is a small team. It's a bit of a boutique program in the department, but we aim to make it a pioneer program so that Department of Mental Health. It's called the home team, and it does the type of outreach that I'm describing. Correct, Department of Mental Health, and it's a small team. And I was saying we want to make it a premier team for the department that isn't just 15 to 20 people. That's like 100 people that is attending to the hot spots of our county where there's folks who are homeless and have serious mental illness, and then we'll do that ongoing engagement that's required. I believe that it was about a month or 6 weeks ago that we had an individual who was suffering and really was needing and actually wanting medication, and we delivered a long-acting injectable medication to someone who is improving, and likely over time, if we're relentless about our outreach and our help, will then be more amenable to getting care, getting housing, and on the road to recovery. I'm just going to stop there because I did come here to listen.
I have a question. First of all, thank you, and for everybody who works in the mental health Department. I am a tenant here downtown here at Skid Row. I went through the whole process of Skid Row. I'm in housing now at the B&I, and I'm attacked there. I'm a tenant advisory council there, so I help hand out the food. My question to you and anyone else that can hear me is that I'm a victim of an assault 2 days ago. I went through all the process that I need to go through at the security for SRO. I went to the SRO corporate, and the gentleman that assaulted me was a hate crime who beat me and dragged me through our building, and everything that I tried to do to either get the person out or get him locked up, nothing or no one came to my aid. Even to this moment, I'm still scared to go back to my building. Security's going to help me because they have to pass out food. And there's a lot of people within my building who have mental issues, which I am also one of them. But I am also a gay male. There are people that are living in my building who are fearing for their life. There's deaths that happened in my building that have been unsolved, and we haven't had a manager in our building for 3 months, nor have we had any caseworkers or mental health or anybody come in that building to see about anyone. I'm very happy that everything is moving forward in this community. That's a wonderful thing. But as a person who's trying to get their life together, I'm very grateful and thankful for everything that everybody has done down here. There's still a voice that I think is not being heard. So I'm here to express that and see what can be done for the people that are already in buildings who are running up against issues from people who have been housed, but there's nobody there to watch or maintain or help, or I'm at a loss, and I'm scared and I don't know what to do, so I'm here.
The first thing I'll say is I'm really sorry to hear about your recent trauma, and I can imagine that it must be really challenging to be in a place where you're living and then to be scared to go back there, and that is not acceptable. I don't know who is whether or not the county itself is funding those programs. Could be a combination of multiple agencies that are doing that. We are making our best efforts to ensure that the places where people are going to live, whether it's for short or long term, have the adequate services, have the security and safety of their own nest, which people need. You need to feel safe to recover. So what I would add, and it sounds to me like what you're facing is actually, at the end of the day, requires a law enforcement activity and an identification of a person that obviously injured you, physically and emotionally. I'd like to think that that's not something that happens, but I've been around a little bit, and I know that the conditions are tough. They're tough when you're in a building, and they're tough when you're in the streets. And I would say that those are both unacceptable. If you wanted to give a name to one of our staff, we can certainly find out about the particular program and how we can facilitate the investigation of what happened to you and try to ensure that you have a safe.
Came back out. He lives 2 doors away from me in the building. He's in the building. I spoke with security just before I came to this meeting. They said that he's allowed to be in that room. But what if, because it's a communal bathrooms and kitchen, what if I go to the bathroom and he chokes me out again and drags me down the stairs? Like, they can't do anything. I feel like unless I die, something.
Joseph here at the police station. Go there, restraining order. I'm restraining order. Yeah, we'll talk to him some more, but Dion Joseph is a great guy in the police station here, so I'm with you there. But I just try to make friends with the police here. They're great people. That's what I have to do. So yeah, I'm just on Broadway. Oh yeah, I know, there is. I agree. But your first steps are right now for instant help. I agree. I'm not arguing with that.
Okay, hold on. We want to keep this civil and orderly in terms of the mic, because we're recording, so you're all speaking off mic. So, but I have someone else from Downtown Mental Health that wants to speak specifically to this gentleman's issues. Stacey Williams.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Stacey Williams. I'm the district chief for Service Area 4, which includes the Skid Row area. And I just wanted to reach out to this gentleman. Please see me when we're all done, and I want to make sure that we give you the assistance that you need immediately. And for anyone else that has any issue of that kind, Jeff and I are going to see what we can do to be involved as far as providing some kind of assistance for safety in the housing community, which I know is a very serious problem. So please see me after and let me.
Thank you, Stacey.
Sherin. My name is Wendy. I used to work for the Department of Mental Health for about 10 years, right before you came on. And now I work for DHS. And my question to you is, can we consider revamping the intake process for the Department of Mental Health? And what I mean by that is that too much of the burden is placed on the client needing services to come in, because as a worker, you know, you always obviously have to meet medical necessity and get all of the information, but a lot of our clients that are needing services can't express the quote-unquote language that the worker is needing and looking for, because they don't have the words, they don't have the terminology that the worker needs to hear for them to be able to access services. And this is kind of what I've been finding, like department-wide, because I worked at Downtown Mental Health Center and Arcadia Mental Health Center, and so I have a good feel of different clinics, but this is kind of this is like kind of department-wide, that too much of the burden is placed on the client to quote-unquote hit those keywords.
Being worked on, it may be that it's not there, or it may be that it's there, but it's still really cumbersome, which is I think what you're saying. And you know, it's similar to what happens when an individual has to repeat the same story and regurgitate the same information again and again, which in and of itself is, you know, is a challenge and is traumatic. And you know, I would ask you, assuming that you're in the Department of Health Services and you're working in an outreach or housing for health type setting, inform us about ways that we could improve that. As far as the mental health services, and those who are here, including those in the department, know, I believe that same-day care is critical and it's missing. You don't have to go, why do we have to go to the emergency department to get same-day care? Right? We have urgent cares, but the urgent cares really are kind of functioning as satellite emergency departments, as opposed to places where you can really get crisis management and be connected. I will say that there's a legislative push to get the urgent cares to allow for people to be there for 3 days, not just one. But I believe there will be a day, and I hope it's not too far away, where we have open access in certain clinics, or in our clinics more broadly, for people to come in and to get care, and not to have to fit into an appointment schedule that if you miss a spot, because, you know, maybe you're homeless, maybe you don't have transportation, maybe you're actually not stable at that time. So for us to then impose a specific time and then to not have to be flexible on our end is actually not meeting the need. And I love the question, because it's something, I worked a lot in the VA before I came here, and this is one of the things that we achieved at the Miami VA. We created a same-day care clinic for individuals who wanted to get care in real time and didn't want to go to the emergency department. They just maybe wanted to get their medications. But waiting a month when you miss an appointment is not acceptable.
Well, thank you. I just want to say quickly, for those standing in the back, we have overflow seating off to the side.
Hi, my name is Carlotta Child-Seco, and I'm the Deputy Director for Outpatient Services. And over the years, we have had difficulty with access, and it hasn't always been easy for people to get into our clinics. But we're really working on changing that, to the extent now that we now have teams in the front end of our service delivery system, where if you come in for an appointment, it used to be you come in, you might get triaged, and then given an appointment to come back. That is changing and has changed. When you come into our clinics now, you will be evaluated, you will get an assessment, and if you need to see a physician on that same day, one will be available to you as well. So we're working on changing our access to care. We have some other things that we're doing too. We are working on developing or accessing a function we already have in our IDA system for you all to get reminders for your appointments, so we're working on that as well. So just stay tuned. You will see some changes very soon if you haven't started to see them already.
I'm sorry, Jeff, just real quick. I think, Carlotta, I appreciate the comments, and I appreciate that a lot of our direction is starting to translate in the trenches. One thing I don't want to do is to create a level of expectation where we're not going to come through. And I think what you're saying is that there certainly are parts of the county and clinics that are adopting this type of an approach. And getting an evaluation in real time is critical, but so is getting, for example, medications. And if you have a psychiatrist or a nurse practitioner who's prescribing meds and you want to come and get meds in real time, I don't know if we're there everywhere. We also, as I think many people know, about half of our work is done in our clinics, and about half of our work is done by an amazing network of community providers. We're trying to move the culture towards open access. We're trying to create a system that's more easily navigated, and where we have navigators, and where we're employing peers to be a big part of a whole new movement. But I applaud you stepping up, Carlotta, and we're going to get there. I just don't want people to have too much expectation, because, I mean, we want to be transparent. The system has got a long, long way to go, and there's so much opportunity. We're going to move it, we're going to move it with you, but we're not there, and we know we're not there.
Skid Row resident Crucial.
Thank you everyone for coming. My name is Crucial. I'm a grassroots community organizer here in Skid Row. I've had my nonprofit now 6 years. I've placed myself on the street with my tent to live because of the mental health that we have, that I've also suffered myself. I wanted to talk with you about that. You brought it up as far as things that you can go through in life and situations that you can go through. You know, everyone's looking to finish this race with success level, quote unquote, that people put in front, that everyone doesn't start the same starting place. With that going, within my community, not even in the one I look in, all around, we're faced with I would say, I call it South Central syndrome, because I'm from South Central, and it's basically with what you're back against the wall, you'll still do things to pull yourself out of a pit that's only going to put you further in. What opportunities are you guys giving for those that actually have the mental capacity to succeed, to keep themselves going, but just don't have the tools or mentally can't put themselves in the mindset that while they're trying to go to their job interview, the cops don't pull up and ask them what are they doing, why are they here, where are they going, and now that's thrown their whole day off from even trying to succeed to be great, because while they're trying to be great, someone else is pointing and ridiculing them. So I want to know what kind of program can we get, or can I, with my nonprofit and others, assist with mental health, that it's giving a person the confidence to understand that when you're starting your day, you actually can try to succeed at it. Thank you.
Well, it's a great question, and I think it's something that gets back to what I was saying earlier about optimizing mental health and not treating mental illness. It's not just about services, it's about opportunities. Without going into details, the way that the Department of Mental Health is funded, even though it's the largest department in the country, it's $2.5 billion, we have a lot of constraints on how we can use our money and who we can use our money for. And I'll say it here, because I say it, I'm trying to be pretty flexible. I mean, I think I'm probably pushing the envelope in a way that, let's just say it's pushing the envelope. Is that buzz something? Am I the only one hearing that buzz?
No, we're waiting for a tech, someone from.
Okay, that's cool. Is everyone all right? I mean, the buzz. Yeah. Appreciate that.
Sorry about that.
But that being the case, there's a lot of opportunity for us in the department to think more creatively about our partnerships, I would say about how we leverage our CalWorks and other state departments I believe they're called, these American Job Centers. There's several different groups of, there's several different entities that exist in our communities that we don't have the partnerships that we need yet. But they're on our radar, and the reason they're on our radar is that you have to find things that help you belong and that give you purpose in order to recover. It's core. You know, some of you have had a chance to come to the headquarters and see that we have a new peer resource center down on the bottom floor. And what we want to see is we want to see the type of activities that are starting there and that will grow there also expand around the county. And those are opportunities to get trained and certified, for example, as a peer, to become a part of the workforce, and a workforce that is dear to your heart. We're fighting for legislation, and for some reason the last governor, I guess he's still governor for another couple days, God bless the governor, didn't sign so that we could pay for resources, pay for peer services. But we're going to get that bill. And the reason that we're going to either get the bill or we're going to get a way to fund peer services through Medicaid. And when we do that, the number of different activities and opportunities for work that we'll be able to deliver to this entire county is going to go through the roof. And we're setting that up. And those of you who are following the department know that very recently we brought on a chief of peer services, an amazing woman named Paris Myrick. Yeah, I'm talking. And the reason for that is to say, hey, we have a chief of psychiatry, we also have a chief of peer services. Why? Because they're both critically important. They're both executives. And we're going to grow a peer workforce and division and service in this county like no one's ever seen, so that there's light at the end of the tunnel for the people who use the department. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody needs to do that. There are many, many other things to do, but we're trying to make a statement. We're trying to invest in a sustainable way so that people have hope and they have a future. And it's not just for us, it's around the entire county. We're trying to lead the charge for what's going to happen in the rest of the departments in Los Angeles County.
You know, she's had her hand up a while, and I talked to her earlier, and I gotta tell you, I mean, I'm a resident of Skid Row, and I consider myself, even though I'm on 5th and Main now, it's still Skid Row, we're on Main Street. But I want to hear from this lady. She's awesome. When I talked to her, when I came in here, she's there to talk right now. I know she's one of your people, but I want her to say what she's got to say.
Hey, I got you, Sherin. You know, I told you, I still believe in you. I told you that at the barbecue. I still believe in it. It's going to be a hard job, though. It's a hard job, a lot of changes, always. Keep going, just don't give up. You know, I want to talk about housing and homeless, the coordinating interest system. When you look out there, I hear things about where caseloads are too heavy. We have too many people on a caseload. Well, wait a minute. You got a lot of money. Buy some space, hire some more people, or stop taking contracts. Let somebody else who can serve those people the right way and take the contract. You know, and I need to hear your views on how you feel about the supportive services versus the housing, because they go together. It's a requirement. And what we had last year is they advertised it in 2015. We were going to have a whole lot of money. So we got people coming from down south, New York, up north in Portland. I have a mental health illness, and they downloaded the VI's PDAC online and was smart enough to know the answers. That's for a smart person. You didn't capture our people in our community. You captured out-of-town people that knew the script, that knew what to say. And, you know, I don't want to marginalize those out-of-town people, but I would like to concentrate, sight unseen, half those people in there got mental health certain issues. We need to make sure they get prioritized over the number.
There's a lot of stuff there. I want to try to address the fundamental themes. The first one is actually what Jeff and I connected on the first time, and that is we have an opportunity to recognize that Skid Row can be revitalized in a way that it reflects a whole different narrative to the people who are here. And that if we can make it a different place that's not cold and dank and unhealthy, and one where it's okay to be and it feels better and it looks better and it's supported more, that begins to change the way that the community feels about themselves and the opportunities that they have in life. And you know, Jeff, we talked about how we can get large investments from the county and from the private sector, and we're not giving up on that. And I've talked to many people in the department where we can uplift the physical and human dynamic on the streets, and we can employ a ton of people to do that. And I think that that's an important cultural move for Los Angeles County and for what some call Skid Row. As far as the issue of engaging people, I fought the VI SPEDAD. I fought VI SPEDAD when I was at the VA. I'm not a fan. It's a tool that has been spread around the country and it's used, and you're right, people know it and people game it. One of the things that I'm hoping with an expanded home team, which is a team that is literally focused on the most sick people in the street who are unengageable, and you can't have a conversation at a given point in time with them. How are they going to fill out a form or give you the data? What are we doing? So as we expand that team and that ethos of care and the relentless outreach, that's how we want to engage those folks. And I'll be honest with you, this department is putting a ton of money into homeless solutions. Since I've been here, we invested, in addition to what we have been over the past years, $115 million into housing, some of which will be innovative and alternative housing approaches. And I'm going to make sure that that housing is used for the people who need it, who have serious mental illness first. That's not an easy thing to do, but it's something that we're focused on. As far as making sure that the services are available to people who get the housing, again, that's one where, especially with more resources coming down from the state as MHSA money is used for Proposition 2, no place like home, we have to make sure that we're prioritizing people as a Department of Mental Health who are struggling with the most serious mental challenges. And I have to take responsibility for that because the elected officials appointed me to be the steward of those resources. And I ask everybody for help. So if that's not happening and our system is getting gamed and our workers are out there trying to help someone and the money is going and the housing is going to folks who are not the most vulnerable or not prioritized, I need to know that. I need to know it from you. I need to know it from everybody that does the work. And I know, that's the only way that we're going to be able to make a dent. And Supervisor Barber says this all the time. If we can't help and provide services and housing to the most vulnerable people in Los Angeles County, we will never, ever win. So that's a charge, it's a challenge to me, it's a challenge to us, and it's really a challenge in many ways to the outreach workers in the Department of Mental Health and the rest of the county, as well as other jurisdictions in the nonprofit sector. I want to say one last thing about the providers and the contracts. The Department of Mental Health, which has over $1 billion of contracts every year, is in the process right now. We got $3 million from a very generous philanthropic organization to create performance-based contracts. Contracts that will hold contractors accountable for doing the work, for caring for those that are the top priority, making sure that the services are not only delivered, but they're having the impact for which they were designed. And a part of that is actually not on the contractors, it's on us. governments are very difficult to contract with. I mean, I know that. We have to face that. I worked at the VA, a lot of the same struggles. So we have to we have to provide better customer service to the contractors in order to hold them accountable for a higher level of care. And that's happening. But you know, with a system this big, it's not going to happen overnight. I can tell you, we're working on this literally nonstop. We've created a whole division in the department, centralized to do contract monitoring and contract support to get to the issue of making sure that our money is used effectively and targeting the people who need it most.
Right here. I've been waiting for a little bit. Right here. How you doing? My name's Don Garza. A long-term resident of Skid Row since 1999. I'm probably just going to make a statement because I want you to learn and know how valuable the VALOR program has been to me at Patriotic Hall. I almost killed myself earlier this year. I was told by somebody here in Skid Row at Urban Voices Project Choir that they didn't want veterans in the choir. She just literally yelled at me, they didn't want veterans in the choir. And one of the outreach workers from JWCH actually sat down with me and told me, because my story is well known, I might as well just throw it out there because it's online. I have PTSD, I'm a Gulf War veteran, first Gulf War. And this outreach worker from JWCH basically sat down and told me, he said, we should not feel sorry for veterans that kill themselves because they're murderers and they're sheep. We deal with something called moral, what's the name of that? Moral injury. I'm grateful to my case managers at the VALOR program. Somehow I was able to reach out. I started to isolate. I started to believe that Vijay Gupta, who happened to actually save my life at the time I sang the Street Symphony and was named one of the best classical performers of 2016, he saved my life. I began to believe that he was directing them to say these things and hurt me. My case manager has been working with me through all of these things. The VALOR program is important not only because it helps veterans, homeless veterans, or veterans that experience homelessness or PTSD, but those that have other than honorable discharges. My case manager did not give up on me. I almost lost my housing because I stopped paying my rent, and because I don't have a substance abuse problem, I went to eating, which is still self-medicating. And I started spending my money on the $15 hamburgers in downtown LA because they're very expensive. So I'm in tax credit housing. What's $300? It's just gonna buy me, what, 10 hamburgers, maybe? But I isolated, and it came close. And you spoke on something, I'm just gonna ask you, continue, and then please continue to have Patriotic Hall, and continue to have the VALOR program there for veterans as a safe place where we can go and be treated by actual veterans that understand what we go through and can identify with us and empathize with us, sympathize with us, and actually, like right now, I love my case manager, but I hate him because he's also holding me accountable, right? And I would hope that you continue to expand on that. We need a safe place. We need a place where we aren't going to be attacked in this right now, which is a political culture right now. It's very bad. And we think that we can handle the attacks, personal attacks on us. But to be honest with you, PTSD runs very deep. There was something else I was going to ask you, but I think that maybe it wasn't the time. Oh, you spoke on purpose. As a result of leaving Urban Voices Project Choir and Street Symphony, I sought out something else, which is Team Rubicon. Team Rubicon predominantly is made up of veterans from across the country. And what we do is we provide relief after natural disasters. We go, we muck out houses, we clear the roads with chainsaws, we live together, and we're together serving a purpose. I've been to Puerto Rico, I've been to Houston, I've been to South Texas, and to be with the people on their worst day after a natural disaster, and to be there and to be of service, has given me such a sense of purpose that it has helped me to propel me forward. It's a result of a team of people, like you said, relationship building within the community. This is my family. Skid Row's my family. The CEOs of the missions are my family. I can go to them if I need something. I go to Andy Bales, I can go to Herbert Smith. I can, Anita, if I'm desperate enough, for the fact that it's working. Whatever has started to be implemented, because I was there at City Hall when the city and county started putting together the rapid rehousing and all those things. I was there supported. I consulted with one of the council members on a lot of these things. You guys, I'm here to show you right now, it's working. Whatever's going on is working. And I congratulate and I hope that it isn't just the ballot program, but other programs that change. Because I did try to go through downtown mental health when I first got there, but I'm gonna let the mic go because she was only supposed to be about 2 minutes. But please continue the good work.
If I might, Destiny, I just want to, I appreciate your comments. Team Rubicon is my favorite nonprofit in the country. We have an opportunity once per year to give a small donation to a nonprofit at a sparse game. I went to Team Rubicon. Been working with them for a long time. And again, I worked at the VA and I worked in the veteran space for a long time. The Board of Supervisors in this department are working together to create what we call the Veteran Peer Access Network. $20 million from the Department of Mental Health, $15 million for housing for veterans, an additional $5 million to start to create a workforce of veterans, a team, not at the county, but at the county, the VA, and nonprofit organizations whose primary duty and responsibility is to each other as a team and to the brothers and sisters in the community who need help. And that will be launching in spring of next year.
I'm right here in front of you, Dr. Sherin.
Hi.
I appreciate this being a listening session because it makes me feel like I'm going to be heard. I've been homeless before, and it's a direct result of being in a domestic violence relationship. And I also have been diagnosed with PTSD, depression, and anxiety as a result of that relationship. And I was on medication for a time. I had individual therapy for depression and PTSD, and I had 5 years of support groups. And I say that to say that I've been giving tools and coping mechanisms. Last year, there were 8 deaths, and I had to decide that I can't attend every funeral because it's not good for me. And one of those people was close to me. At one time, it was actually my abuser. And I met someone right after he died, and I didn't get a chance to fully grieve him because I was falling in love. But on the anniversary of that day, I was experiencing like intrusive memory and anxiety and dealing with PTSD triggers. I had a couple of emergency room visits, and so I felt like I needed to check in and get some therapy. So I went to West Central over on Snocker in Service Area 6, and it was June 1st. I was told to come back for an intake July 16th, which is 6 weeks later, and that really was too long. And I'm saying that because I know there are things going on with people that are more severe, but I would like you to know the way that I was treated. So when I went on July 16th, it still wasn't for an appointment, it was for an intake. In order to set me up with a meet and greet on August 3rd So here we are 2 months later for a meet and greet that I don't need to meet a case manager and a therapist and a psychiatrist. I needed my individual therapy. Well, because I'm an advocate and I'm speaking out in meetings, you know, I had people assisting me. Actually, someone from your advocacy department at headquarters helped me to get an appointment a week earlier. I think my appointment was August 10th and I was able to get it August 3rd with a completely different therapist. But I still went to the meet and greet, okay? What happened at that meet and greet is that it was with my initial therapist that I don't have therapy with. She let us know that her caseload is over 300 and that she's not seeing individuals, only doing groups. Because the people that she does, she sees them every 4 months. Well, when I had my 12 sessions of depression therapy, it was weekly. When I had my 40 sessions in 10 months for PTSD therapy, it was weekly. Monthly is not good enough for me, let alone every 4 months. So I'm just painting the picture for you. So I was able to have a therapy in August. I was able to have a therapy in September. But I know it's because I'm an advocate. I know that that's not the case for everyone walking into West Central. My October appointment was canceled. I received a phone call on a Sunday from my therapist telling me I will not be having individual therapy, that is canceled for the entire clinic until next year. Well, I spoke out about that too as an advocate, and I was able to also speak to my therapist supervisor because I was leaving and we were engaging and she walked by and introduced herself. And what she proceeded to tell me is that it's not just West Central that canceled individual therapy, but that is all of the DMH clinics. And that this came down from the discipline chiefs. And my concern was not only for myself. My concern is, isn't this the time of year where mental health is exacerbated? So even though these people are being taken off of their individual therapy in order to address people walking into the clinic, so for me it was 6 weeks. At this current time, it's 3 months, 4 months out. Way longer than 6 weeks. So they're down doing like the triage and the intakes instead of the individual therapy, trying to like clear the log. I'm just very, very, very concerned about that. Well, I had therapy yesterday, so it was canceled on the 18th, but reinstated because of me advocating. But it's only for me. It's only for me, you know, so when my therapist was taking me down on the elevator to, you know, so I can go back to my car, I asked him, has individual therapy been reinstated for everyone, or is it just me? He said, it's just you.
What you're telling me is actually not something that I would be familiar with. I mean, there's no mandate to stop doing individual therapy in the Department of Mental Health. There's actually an effort to, I would say, make sure that there's equity across the clinics and that the clinics are adequately staffed. We're in an expansion mode. We're trying to hire more staff, which is one of the reasons why we've got discipline chiefs. The discipline chiefs are out of the training programs, building the pipeline, recruiting great people to come into the department to provide care. Okay. So our goal is to build more capacity so that we can have same-day access available, which I was talking about before. And if you do same-day access more effectively, it actually brings down the requirement in other areas because it's a more efficient way to use the staff time. That's a goal. You know, we don't have an endless amount of resource. How we apply the resource is, you know, debatable. You can tell there are different things that we could focus on. Our goal would be to make sure that anyone that has a crisis and is in need can get care in real time, and that we can deliver the goal. Carlotta, do you have anything to add?
I just want to thank you for sharing your experience with us here today, and to tell you that that is not the standard by which we want to practice. And I'm sorry that that happened to you. And that we will be, as I talked earlier about some changes we were making to improve access to care, and Dr. Sherin is correct, he said we're not quite there yet. We're working on it, we're working toward it to resolve these kind of problems that you brought forward today. And so I will be taking this back, taking a closer look at the operations at West Central to come up with some strategies to improve access to care there. So, thank you.
Dr. Sherin, hold on. Okay, I want to let everyone know that we see you. I mean, we know that you're really excited about getting your questions, and we're really trying to do it in a way where we have one side of the room and the other. So we do see you, and we're going to try to get to you as soon as we can. Just know that we hope that we can get all of your questions in today, and if not, we'll find some type of way that you guys can be heard and can get all your questions answered, okay? So we have a question over here, and then we're gonna have one here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not really a question or anything. Hi, my name is Jasmine Brown. I'm actually a resident, homeless mother, mental health client resident. I don't know if you guys got that. I'm gonna say it one more time. I am a mental health client, homeless resident. Which means that, and I'm also a mother with 2 children. I have a 2-year-old daughter. It's my first time being a mother of a daughter. And I have also boys. And the gap between that, with my boys and my girl, is about 14 years. I know I look young, I'm not that young, but yeah, I am still young, right? But it's a gap of 14 years, so that is kind of like one of my problems. You know, yes, they do have shelters for mothers, but being a molested woman as me, and inside family and outside family, and having my things stolen and things like that, I choose not to go into a shelter or shared living because my mental health stability is not going to allow that. And I do have a worker, Ms. Violent, at the downtown mental health that I work with on a weekly basis. But including with you guys individual mental health, please do not forget about those mothers that do have children that have mental health problems that are homeless also in this area. And the reason why we can't be put in these homes is because of the molesters or whatever, you know, that you guys have with the single people. Please do not forget about the mothers that are here, because there are mothers that have children, daughters and sons, that are in the same predicament as the single people that you guys do not service that well. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Big Joe. To those who don't know me, most people should know me in the community. I'm a community advocate, peer advocate. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up is the fact that I'm a strong advocate for peer advocacy. I believe that we need to have more scholarship programs to train peer advocates, to allow them to be able to learn how to advocate and be able to go into internships. I believe the stipend is also a wonderful incentive. I believe that it helps. I also understand that, you know, how they have Sherin, which is a very big organization on Broadway and in Culver City. I believe we need to seriously consider having more facilities like Sherin. because they have surrounding services that address many, many different issues on the mental health. You got sexual abuse, you have alcohol co-occurring, all different types of groups that can be held at a facility. And if you have a facility that's open, you know, from morning to late evening like that, people that have issues that would like to go and be able to sit down and just be able to share it. A group where it's client run, where the clients are running the group, they're there, and there's a constant flow in the group, so that there's always something going on whenever you come through. I believe it's very therapeutic. I believe it's very helpful. I'm a group facilitator, and I've seen how groups work. People have come in and they've said, man, I've never, you know, really opened up, and they started breaking down and crying, and they felt a sense of relief. And because they were in a group with peers of their own that could understand even the homelessness issue, that could understand and identify with them, and people were able to give input, not a control group, because Culver City has controlled groups. I don't believe in that. I believe in a free-flowing group where people can give input and they can have a dialogue. And this is a wonderful thing. I believe there's resources in DMH, and I believe they need to do that. I think it's going to be helpful for clients overall. I believe it will be very therapeutic. It would help people even once they get housing. And like the sister was saying about not being able to have someone to talk to, if she was able to go to one of these groups and keep on going on a continual basis, there might be a possibility she may not even need to have so much of that therapy. And also even a reduction in medication. Because technically we know that medication is not 100%. Some people are in severe cases where it's necessary, but we need to look for better alternatives and other alternatives to bring people. There are so many people already self-medicating, and they have the drug issue that they're already dealing with. We need to try to reduce all of that and get them into a sense of normalcy where they can be able to function in society, be able to deal. I know friends who are therapists, they have therapists. So it's a great thing to be able to be in a group, in a setting, and be able to really help go through the layers. Because there's, in life, a lot of times we went through tragedies in our young lives and we never addressed those issues. And the reason when you look around people in Skid Row, it's because those issues were never addressed. And so now they're going through it. And so we need to address those issues. In groups we can do that and peel back the onion. So I just want to say, you know, I bring out that. Hopefully you will seriously look into it, and definitely offer more of these things. And once someone has a point where they can achieve something, they have a certificate that they've gone through a training, and they say, I am a peer advocate. It gives them a sense of dignity. It gives them a sense that they've achieved and accomplished something, and now they want to give back. And so it's a win-win-win overall. And then they are qualified to work in TMH and have positions where they can be permanent help for other people.
I love what you're saying, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, and I just want to kind of give you a sense of one of the primary directions of the department, and that is, again, I'll bring up the name of Mitch Katz. Mitch Katz said we can use healthcare money to provide housing because if I write a prescription for housing, it's better than a medication. It's going to support better health. I take the perspective that for people who are isolated and otherwise suffering, that we ought to be able to write a prescription for kinship. Right now, if we're able to build a peer service like the one that I have been talking about, that we've been working on, and get sustainable funding from the state, that's what we're going to be doing. We have a peer division. It's the top legislative priority of the department. We have a peer chief that was just hired recently. The number of peers that is being employed and that will continue to be employed is the biggest area of growth for the department across the programs. And it is a win-win-win. It's the way to engage people. It's the way to get people to open up. It's a way to bring people out of isolation. It's a way to give people jobs and pride in their job and do stuff that no clinician can provide. I got training all day long, but there's things that you don't learn that you only can learn through experience. So we're fully aligned. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Sherin. Glad to see you. I'm Minister Victoria here. I'm also the founder of the Skid Row Tenants Union. Edelman suggested that I come and speak at this meeting today to bring up some issues that are happening in the SRO and Skid Row Housing and Trust buildings. The problem that I see is that employees of these companies are not being trained properly. They don't have the experience in dealing with those suffering from mental illness. And it causes a chain reaction of problems. I think that we need to look at overhauling the hiring process, because those who are really, I live in an SRO, those who are really suffering, they're not receiving case management at all. When their program designates for them to receive case management, some of the mental health patients in my building alone, they're begging for case management and can't get it. And it throws them into crisis. They may punch a hole in their unit wall. They may attack another resident. And I think that that's part of the problem when we're looking at the current physical violence that is occurring in these buildings. I myself have been assaulted by a senior property manager. And I am also a Department of Mental Health patient. I suffer from extreme depression. The Edelman Clinic thought that it would be a great idea for me to come over because I've been dealing with Edelman for many, many years, and I love my Edelman. We feel, some of us that are living in these buildings, that if something is not done, there will be a civil disobedience action. Because people are crying out and they're not receiving anything in return. And we're talking about residents who may be double amputees, residents who may be suffering from breast cancer and dealing with, severe depression from that. Well, those type individuals don't need a property manager cursing them out when they go in their office and simply ask, can you tell me when my fan is going to be fixed? They don't need to be told to get the F out of their office, okay? So there is a definite problem with people abusing the disabled. And the Skid Row Tenants Union was actually founded to try to work with the community in helping to resolve some of these issues. But you also need to understand that because the property managers don't have much experience, some of them are straight out of prison themselves, some of them are addicts themselves. They don't have experience in working in property management. This is their first job. Okay, so it really creates a major problem in this area. One last thing I wanted to share, sometimes my mind goes, because the issues are just so severe. I know it was mentioned that the gentleman who is suffering from abuse at his unit could go to the police. We need to come up with something where we can handle our own issues. Okay. The abuses are so severe that a lot of people who are mentally challenged are being illegally evicted. And where are they going? Back to the tents. So that's really all I wanted to say. I think that, I participated in the peer group sessions and, it was beneficial for me, but it's gotten to a very dire state. I don't have much confidence in Anita Nelson. I feel that she's dropped the ball and she's lost compassion for those that she says she cares for. But if you would just send some of your representatives from the Department of Mental Health into some of the SROs to have one-on-one conversations with the mental health patients, you will be able to gather more information that I feel will help all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For a moment, it's heavy content, emotional subject matter. I just want to lighten the mood for a moment and talk about a Skid Row success story. Danny Park, could you come up here for a minute? Now, Danny Park has a very, very unique story, and I'll let him speak briefly about it, but I just want to say, in terms of him being the proprietor of a very own business right here in Skid Row called Skid Row Coffee. Take a couple of minutes to talk about your business.
Hello everyone. My name is Danny Park. My family, we've had a corner market here, mini market here for going on 24 years. I grew up in that store since I was 9, going in and out. So a couple years back, one of the things that we've envisioned was always a community space / coffee house in the community, for and run by the people of the community. So 2 years ago, with the means that we had, we built a coffee cart and started just rolling around and serving folks in the community. And that naturally grew into a social enterprise catering business. And it was a way that we can also do job training and create work and create a business for and by the community here. So this Monday, we're going to be opening in the Central Library. And then another thing that we're working on is, so the market is right there on 5th and San Pedro. That store next year, we're going to close it down and it's going to be a community-based market. We're talking about having a cafe in the space, having a space for workshops related to teaching about technology, teaching about policies that directly affects this community, arts and cultural space, and of course, better food, affordable costs, and we're exploring ways of healing, indigenous healings, that's rooted in the people and our history. Yeah, restrooms, yes.
Oh no, grassroots.
Grassroots and restrooms. Yes.
And so I just want to lift this up. Give another round of applause for that's Danny Park. And for those that didn't hear, this coming Monday, they grew from a little push cart, serving coffee at Skid Row Coffee at the many community events. They now have a brick and mortar facility that's going to open up in the LA Central Public Library. If anyone knows, it's right next to Panda Express, the little pizza place that just was empty. Skid Row Coffee is going to take that over. So, it's going to provide jobs for residents here. You're going to see Skid Row. So we need you to go support Skid Row Coffee. Get your coffee from there because it's definitely grassroots. So I just wanted to change the mood for a minute, give us something positive to think about, uplift the energy before we get back into this heavy topic. And so,
they can get a book while they're there.
Exactly. Oh, see, yes, Destiny, take it over. Thank you.
All right, so I'm George Forrest. We're part of the nonprofit called the homeless project. We volunteered our time to clean up the streets of Skid Row where we pick up trash on the street. One thing that you guys have touched on today, I love the enthusiasm too. Just I love being here. Anyway, the fact is that we touched on employment a good amount today, and I wanted to talk about that. And one thing that is like a very big, one thing I think about a lot is like we supply the homeless citizens with micro housing, a lot of food, almost too much food at a certain point, and employment. I feel like micro employment instead of is going along with micro housing could be a very big step forward. So I was just wondering what thoughts you had on that. As far as like giving smaller employment opportunities, daily employment, a couple hours a day where people can go. I understand that we do have mental health issues with a lot of those people, but what can we do with people who are ready to work, who just don't have the opportunities?
Thank you. We talked a little bit earlier about employment and having a purpose and a mission. One of the things that I've always said is that we have these employment programs and we take this position of, oh, this person's ready or this person is not ready. And I'm of the mind that when you give someone the opportunity to do something and they do it, they're ready. And anybody that does not have purpose, that's given purpose, is going to be better. They're going to do better. They're going to feel better. And they're going to be contributing. I had talked earlier about something that brought Jeff and me together originally, and that was the revitalization of Skid Row by Skid Row, that we could figure out a way to resource through public-private partnerships. And I think that that's something that's not about the Department of Mental Health. It's about the governmental jurisdictions, multiple departments, the city, and I would say the private sector coming together to make a statement and to offer what you're talking about, micro-employment. I've not heard that one, but I love it, in a big, big way. Jeff, we're going to be working on this, and I know that you and Mimi have talked about it, but this would be a great thing, because as you know, in a bureaucracy like this one, it can take 6 months, it can take a year to hire somebody into full-time employment. But if we're able to figure out much more nimble ways to get resources out, give people a chance to contribute, help them to earn money, improve their day, improve their trajectory in their life, that's a big deal, and it needs to be a part of the solution. So I really applaud that comment. Thank you.
Excuse me, this lady's had a hand up for almost an hour.
Thank you, Dr. Sherin. So I'm one of the DMH contractor providers. I'm also one of the CES organizations, one of the largest in LA County, and a substance use provider and a trauma-informed care provider. So I get the intersection, and I appreciate your vision because we're in the process of rolling it out. But I just want to kind of highlight a few things. So from the housing perspective, and I heard some of the folks in the room reference large caseloads and things like that, but the reality is, when you're at like my organization, 250% of your enrollments at month 4 in a 12-month period, and the elected official says don't stop enrolling, and you're getting no more money, then that's my reality. And it is what it is, and I think that narrative doesn't get heard enough. But in the meantime, we're trying to be as creative as we can be. So I have 2 questions for you, specific to some of the things that you mentioned. In terms of the homeless solutions that you said that you're rolling out now, in my region, Spot 6, we work really closely with all of our directly operated, so we have a really close partnership with DMH, and we have for years, and I think we work well together. But as I said, we're at capacity. The coordinated entry system, which a lot of times DMH leans on, is at capacity. So in your homeless solutions, are you looking to try to help with some of that capacity? Because right now, there's very few housing navigators, so most of the clinicians, we work well with them, but the message is to send them to CES, send them to Hopkins, send them to Hopkins. And so we are at capacity too, so I'm really hopeful that your homeless solutions will include possibly some expanded capacity for your own offices to do some of the front end stuff. So that's first, and I want to hear your response to that. The second thing that I'm most excited about when you talk about pushing the envelope is what you've recently done with the PEI, right? So we're in the process of being creative through both our Family Solutions Center and our Access Center for Singles and using those dollars to leverage, right? Since the medical necessity goes away. But one of the barriers even to realizing what you've opened up for PEI is the fact that we still have to do that full-blown assessment, which I know your department is considering, but I really want you to think about those of us who are in, there's a few of us that are in all these spaces. And so we're trying to use it to provide the same day support that you talked about, to provide crisis intervention for people that are not enrolled. But having to go through the full-blown assessment process still for folks that may not meet medical necessity is a barrier for us. So I'd like to hear your response to those two things.
Well, you know, I'll be honest with you, it's hard to put together all the pieces, and I talked about the steep learning curve and the endless steep learning curve. What you're describing is something that I literally just learning the past couple of days, and that is, I am trying to figure out ways to get more and more administrative flexibility. That's the term I like to use. One where you're not as constrained about how you can use money. Because what we end up doing is delivering what we can deliver, whether it meets people's needs or not, instead of being driven by the needs of people, by the trench. It's the trench where people get help and where we deliver care. The concept of doing a full-blown assessment when you're not trying to meet medical necessity, which you just described, seems to not make sense. So, and no one said that to me till this minute. So thank you. The second issue, I had mentioned before that we've invested $150 million in addition to what we had previously been investing in actual housing and alternative and innovative housing solutions. That's one type of capacity. And I think it's fair to say we need more capacity for people to live. And I wouldn't say that it's all about permanent supportive housing. It's also about boarding care. It's about collaborative housing. It's about share type models. It's about all of these different things. Things that are maybe more efficient in terms of the amount of resource you get for the bang for the buck, and also how quick we can get to those solutions. Because building permanent supportive housing units can take years. The other topic you bring up in terms of capacity, I think, has to do with outreach, engagement, and navigation. And as I said, we are focusing, and we're focusing very specifically on, though in terms of an expansion, we're focusing very specifically on what I believe to be, in many ways, but it's the bullseye of this department's mission, and that is the sickest and the most vulnerable. That's what we have to do. It's our charge, and it's why I'm here. So we, along with other departments, are looking to expand outreach. We're looking to expand engagement and navigation. We've put a ton of resource, this department, into the general county-wide effort. All of our SB 82 teams are now working with Housing for Health, with SC3s, with a lot of the nonprofit sectors. We're trying to be as efficient and cooperative as possible around CES, which was developed for reasons which are well-intended reasons, and I think in some ways can cause some constraint in terms of the efficiency of the system, and I've been pretty vocal about that. But I'm telling you that the place that we will be investing first and foremost right now is on the folks who are in the streets, who are many times non-communicative, and who need our help the most. And the reason why this department, they're the North Star. We start taking care of people who are the sickest and the most vulnerable in the streets, then we're going to build it out from there. We can't fail. That's the goal. And I'm not saying we're abandoning anything. I'm just telling you that's our laser. That's my laser focus as the director of the department.
Hey, I work with the Drake Center, and like, I don't know what everybody else does, but we do a lot of outreach. And I know that you were talking about, it's the home team, right, that comes out and they kind of do outreach and try to find who's who, things like that. Even me, myself, even since January, like the absence of 2 months, I've made almost 100 outreach down here to Skid Row. around it. We come to the same areas. We're very consistent in the areas in which we do come. Gladys Park, we come out anywhere from 2 to 8 times a week, and making relationships, letting know any kind of services that we do have, but we don't have a service for mental health. So is there anything in which I can do to get with this home team? And I know you're talking about like even having like shuttle buses, or not shuttle buses, but these cars that you're talking about, like the ambulance, to where like there would be a hotline if I was to come into contact with an individual that doesn't intend to like open up, and I build a bridge, and then I could be a point of reference or a bridge or something for you guys to actually come and give help. And then would there be something that maybe I could attend to get some training as far as being educated in how to know how to handle that situation and involving you guys?
Well, thank you. A couple things. First of all, in terms of the home team, Anthony Ruffin, he's still here, and the rest of the home team. The home team is right back there, and I would recommend that you connect. I'm also going to read from my bracelet here, 800-854-7771. That's our access line. You call our access line, you ought to be connected to whatever resources in the department that you would require. The last thing is, I'm assuming that you have relationships with the rest of the, homeless collective, the E16s. Are you familiar with that term, E6? You're not. So there's a ton, and this is not a simple thing. We got 10 million people. We say we probably have 50 to 68,000 homeless. I don't know if that's accurate. And there's so many different players that it's confusing. But you need to be engaged and informed about how to be a part of that solution in a way that you can leverage other people, and people can leverage your expertise and your heart.
Scientific study after scientific study has proven that lack of quality sleep makes you crazy. In Asia, at airports and train stations, they have secured sleeping capsules. In Little Tokyo, and the hotel has been operating for over a year with close to sleeping capsule type accommodations in compliance with Los Angeles building code. That might be a solution, the tents on the street are essentially sleeping capsules.
I have heard about what you're describing, but I didn't know that they were in Los Angeles County, and I didn't know the issue with the codes. But I would ask you, Mimi, can you please talk with this gentleman about what is available apparently in, did you say Little Tokyo?
It's fully booked.
I understand.
They rent it out for 30 days.
No, I get that. The question is it an important solution, and is there a way that we can expand capacity for that type of resource?
Yeah, well, it's operating successfully in Little Tokyo. This sleeping capsule type accommodation.
I understand. That's why I'm having a staff member come over to find out about that, because it might be something that we could replicate and grow. And I agree with you. Sleep is critical. And before I got into this business of becoming a bureaucrat, although I'm not a bureaucrat, I used to study sleep. I used to be a brain researcher, and I studied sleep, and it is critical.
Okay, thank you. Question? Yes.
All right, just a comment and 2 quick questions. First comment is just stress the importance of making sure whatever you do is culturally tailored. Right now it's a big push in looking at, even LASA has an ad hoc committee on Black people experiencing homelessness, because they're looking at these great disparities that exist, and there's no one-size-fits-all model. So the Association of Black Psychologists has done a lot of great work over the years for culturally tailored approaches, and I think that should be central to anything you do, as well as getting constant feedback from the people receiving services. And so, and also in regards to, I like the spirit that you have of collaboration and thinking outside the box. And I think even in leveraging resources, creative partnerships with people that can address some of those culturally tailored needs, I think is essential. But 2 questions I have for you. One is, how do you gather and respond to feedback regarding service delivery? So what formal process do you have to make sure that your services are being responsive? And the second question is, what does prevention look like? Do you have any view or philosophy on prevention? Because the majority of mental illness that we see is not organic. People aren't born with it. It's social roots and institutional things that create these problems.
Yeah, those are great questions. You'd like to think there'd be a Yelp to solve all these issues because they solve it in other kind of business models. We are in the process right now of taking what was built over the past, 12 years of stakeholder engagement process and injecting a ton of resource to make it more robust. Mimi, if you don't mind stopping, I'm going to have you speak to this gentleman here who I'm talking to right now about the new stakeholder process.
Your DMH.
Your DMH. So that gentleman there, I want you to connect with him. I know I'm keeping you busy. And the idea is that, partly it's in the state of California with the advent of MHSA, there was a mandate that there would be robust stakeholder engagement processes. And certainly in a jurisdiction of this size, that's not an easy thing to do. And a ton of work was done and one was created, and I think it's been great, and we're in the process of re-energizing it and investing in it to the point where what we've had for the county, we're now going to have in each service area. So it's basically an 8-fold increase in our investment to engage at the grassroots level, the people who we're trying to serve, so that we can get input like we're getting here today, and we can get feedback about how we're doing. And what I'm saying to my staff is when you go to these stakeholder meetings, you go and you listen. It's not about telling people what we have, although if they ask you, you can tell, but the point is that we go and we absorb information about what's working and what's not working. An overlay over that, I don't know if you're familiar with the term service area, there's 8 service areas in Los Angeles County. We have an overlay looking at underserved cultural communities, and we're turning up the volume on that as well for all the reasons that you described. So, I'm going to say this to you. I want to see you at your DMH meetings. I want to hear your voice. And if you're going to come to those meetings and represent like other people do, it's not about just showing up as a person with a voice. It's about showing up after meeting with tons of people throughout the community who have similar concerns and similar ideas, and feeding us based on input from a lot of other people, and then gathering information and going back out in an iterative way to inform those who you're working with. It's a very active process. The second thing that you asked about is prevention. We had a brief exchange up here in the front about loosening up prevention monies. I'll tell you how I see prevention, and I'll tell you how I see the responsibility of this department. With prevention monies, we have the opportunity to put resources on what I like to call the platforms of our community, the access platforms of our communities. And by that I mean, for example, schools, libraries, parks, health clinics, and there are many others, the faith-based community, people who can identify the red flags of our time. And when they identify a red flag, meaning someone that has needs, they will connect with them, share information, engage them, and help triage them to care. Some of that care we'll provide because we're a specialty mental health provider. But if it's not us, it's somebody to meet the needs of that individual person. If you do that properly, there will be fewer red flags. There will be fewer people who are disconnected from the system. And you'll also have people who, when they engage the system, stay with the system. If we do that broadly, we can bend the curve on the number of people who are suffering from mental illness and the severity of their mental illness. And I'm not going to get into the nature-nurture conversation because all we want to do is help people that are suffering.
Thank you, Dr. Sherin. We have 2 questions over here.
Well, Dr. Sherin, My first question is, you said that the DMH budget is $2.5 billion a year. I was wondering, does that include excessive?
Well, I mean, that's a part of the public record. I'm not saying that we necessarily communicated it adequately, but it's a part of the public record and it's heard at the board. So we'll get you that information. Okay. You bet.
Dr. Sherin, you have a very challenging job. I moved on this block 10 years ago when they opened the Rinaldo Apartments, where I stayed across the street and down the street. We've had about 6 or 7 murders in our buildings since we opened it up. One happened 2 months after we opened it up between the caretaker and the caretaker. There seems to be a problem in terms of communication, working together between Department of Mental Health, SRO Housing Corporation, Los Angeles Police Department, which is an integral part of everything because of the power to arrest. The problem is, one of the questions I have for you is, when you guys 5150 people in collaboration with the police department, do you have a system by which you track those people if they're trackable, or you continue to follow those individuals? It doesn't appear to just recently that the police department has been really started to really pay closer attention to what's happening in the streets with people that are dying while they're sleeping in the streets, etc. I notice they're beginning now to go over and check people that are laying down for a long time. But I asked Ms. Nita Nelson, the CEO of the SRO Housing, what was her relationship with the police department when we opened that building up, because the mayor and a lot of the higher bureaucratic people were over in our parking lot celebrating the Rinaldo Apartments. What is your view of what you want to do with people that are severely hurting out in the streets? Because I watched a gentleman on 50th Spring, he was sitting on the sidewalk on the steps, and he was carving his arm with a knife. He was bleeding, and it was obvious blood was running down his arm, and I flagged the police down quickly, and I told the police what had happened and what he was doing. And I watched the police ask the gentleman, "Sir, are you all right?" He said he was all right, and they moved along. And it was obvious the problem because of what he was doing with his arm. So how do you plan to approach this? What do you have in place?
Well, there's a couple of different things in there, a lot of different things, and there's two that stick out. First of all, I have mentioned an initiative in the department, which is really expanding a program that we're redefining called the Home Team. And there are a number of folks who work in the Home Team here, and what their goal is going to be is to be available to those who are the sickest, most vulnerable in the street. The generalized outreach teams are busy all day long. If they don't have the time or the capacity to do the type of engagement that we need for individuals who literally over weeks and months we have to attend to on a regular basis. In many, we call it street medicine, and some of that, which is actually where I'm doing my clinical work, where you have to engage somebody, maybe even provide medications to somebody as a part of them beginning down the road and being more amenable to getting help. Maybe going to a clinic, maybe accepting housing as opposed to just rejecting any help. And many of them, I would say, reject help because they've been traumatized by the system, which gets to the second part of your question, and that is what happens around the 5150s and the hospitalizations. We're developing an ambulance service of our own where we'll be transporting people, I would like to think, in a welcoming and nurturing way in the context of an urgent or emergent situation to the hospital and sitting with them, rather than relying upon the police or the medical ambulances to do that transportation. In addition, we're renegotiating all of our contracts with the hospitals in Los Angeles County. The reason we're renegotiating them is because we need to incentivize them to be a part of our network and to follow our mission. And our mission is not putting people in the hospital for 3 days or 14 or 17 days and then kicking them out. We need to have a lot more influence over who comes in, the level and quality of care they get, and how well they're connected when they're discharged from the hospital. And that, we're behind in that. I know that. The very first question I asked my team when I showed up was, what's the most number of hospitalizations for one individual in Los Angeles County? And the number was way, way, way too high. Way too high. And the way that you deal with stopping people from cycling in and out of the hospital and getting more, traumatized each time and being less and less interested in getting help is to provide them with great care. To spend the time while they're there, making sure that they're connected when they leave so that they have a chance to recover outside of institutional involuntary treatment.
Question. Hi, my name is Christine. I'm an attorney. I'm related to a lot of housing rights. Well, I really appreciated what you said earlier about, focusing on holistic care. I think one of the major blind spots in the psychiatric orthodoxy is like the inability to tie care into like holistic bodily healing, and that, as human beings, we're animals, we carry trauma in our bodies much the way animals do. And so services like massage, acupuncture are not just culturally sensitive but necessary to reduce psychological symptoms. And I talk about difficulties that you have possibly like finding ways to get people that provide these services locally certified to be contracted by the government, and other obstacles you might face in that process. And I was wondering if you could just comment on your experience trying to expand holistic care and maybe some advice you have to people that are interested in, bringing jobs, to our local economy that provide the services and, get the government backing.
In order to really heal in a holistic way, it has to have access to lots of things. I mean, fundamentally, a safe and comfortable place to live, a variety of services, a number of opportunities, which could be a job, basic amenities of life, and environments that are nice to be in, places to socialize. We're the government departments in the state of California, like this one, we're not funded to pay for yoga. We're not funded to do alternative complementary type treatments per se. Now, we can get creative because we can do things like look at partnerships, leverage different resources and weave them together to deliver that type of service that you're describing, particularly if we engage people in employment that are doing the work. So I'm all about trying to do that. And we are thinking about ways to foster recovery all day long. I mean, I'll give you an example. We had last May, we had a community engagement and rewrite the narrative movement for May's Mental Health Month called We Rise. Which I think was a pretty robust effort. It's one where we had great artwork done by artists who had lived experience generally in LA, in California, around the country, and actually a couple of international pieces. We also had great music from incredible musicians. We had live performance. We showed films. We featured films made by people who had struggled with mental health. What I'm saying is we would like to support activities with our consumers to do great art, and our consumers to generate great music, to put that show on with our people and invest in that. That's not an easy thing to do, but we're trying to do it. We want to set it up so that in May, which is Mental Health Month, we celebrate our clients and this county and its commitment to recovery. And it's in the context of that we can start doing some of the work that you're talking about. It's probably the quickest road to doing fully holistic type stuff where we're supporting activities that otherwise might not be considered mental health treatment.
Okay, Dr. Sherin, we have one more question. This will be our last. Wait, you have a question? You want to do an announcement? Okay, so we have one more question, and this will be, we have two more questions, and then the young lady in the back, that will be our last question for today, and then we have an announcement from Reba.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nina Womack. Thank you, Dr. Sherin. That's interesting that she just brought that up. I came a little late, so I didn't hear that comment you made, but I did want to make a public comment about just getting an answer from you about that type of activity. I share the same story with some of the women that spoke today. I have been a survivor of childhood sexual and physical abuse, have gone through PTSD, suicide, trying to commit suicide multiple times, and domestic violence relationships. I healed naturally without the use of medication on taking yoga, meditation, all of that. So therefore, I earlier this year got trained as a peer mental health advocate, and I took the initiative because I understand my purpose now to help others heal naturally, to go on and put on activities built on health and wellness for the underserved. And thank you, I have to be honest, thank you to the Department of Mental Health that I did apply for several grants and got 3 to put on those activities throughout South LA. But then after that short amount of funds ran out, where I was able to pay instructors, pay for flyers, pay for a location, I came to the Peer Resource Center to offer those same services on a volunteer basis. And I brought holistic practitioners to the Peer Resource Center to volunteer their time in yoga with sound healing and so forth. And I will be honest, I was not supported at that time with the Department of Mental Health. No one wanted to send out the flyers that I made. I was told by the Peer Resource Center that I'm responsible for my own audience. I'm bringing it into Department of Mental Health. I can't force working people to come down on 5th and Vermont during daytime hours to come take a yoga class. This was a great opportunity for the people that Department of Mental Health Services, and they show no support. Also, on-staff peer person there at the Resource Center found it upon herself to have a workshop right in the middle of when I was doing my workshop to compete with what we were trying to do. So I felt very discouraged. My program is still going on at about 5 other locations throughout Los Angeles, but I was disappointed that there was no support from the Department of Mental Health when we were coming to volunteer to help the people. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say to you, I'm sorry that was your experience. I'll also say that that space was behind metal doors. It had equipment and dirt and boxes. Okay? So in the past year and a half, we now have a big open space. We're hiring peers. We're trying to create a curriculum. We want it to be client run. I'd like to think 2 years from now, when you show up like that, you'll be embraced and you'll be able to run all day with your programs. But we're not there yet. We're not there yet, and we know that. So your experience is unfortunate, but we are going to require the type of tenacity and patience and tolerance that is required of all of us to get there. And 2 years from now, I'm praying, and you're going to come up to me after this moment, and you're going to say, you know what? Now that place is jamming. And now I can come in, and I know how to get registered that I'm going to be there in 2 Thursdays from 10 to noon before lunch, and then we're going to have lunch served. That's what I would love to see. And but it can't happen overnight. And there's no one that's more restless and impatient than you with this stuff. It hurts to hear that kind of a story because we don't want that kind of a story. And we look to you and people like you to help rewrite the narrative.
My name is Jennifer. And
I want to be a voice for my brother, who is one of the seriously mentally ill. And he is refusing services, refusing medication. He is homeless. He has been traumatized by the system in many of the ways that you all have already described, so I won't go into that. He has been outreached to by the AOT team, very extraordinarily compassionate people. However, they cannot make a case for him to be involuntarily taken into that program. So he is right now just floundering on the streets. And one of the reasons I have been told is that he presents well, quote unquote. And I'm not sure how I can change how he presents. I only know that he is mentally ill and he needs a lot of care and a lot of help, and it seems that it's missing. Also, I'm wondering, because he has been in the system a long time, I am paid for his SSI. It seems as if he is sort of penalized for having SSI because he's able to eat. And from my understanding, because he's able to eat, he is not gravely disabled and therefore cannot be involuntarily put into the AOT, or it's not easy to make a case. It's not, and if they did make a case, and I'm sure, and they are compassionate enough to do so, a judge would deny him to be involuntarily put in the AOT program. So I'm sure you're familiar with all those scenarios. What is you are expanding services apparently to those people. How are any of those issues addressed, as well as some of the other ones about trying to make appointments and having to wait a month and 3 months, and by the time if someone is seriously mentally ill, one, they can't voluntarily go anywhere, or they will not voluntarily, I should speak about my brother. My brother will not voluntarily go to any clinic, do anything voluntarily. Once I convince him to do so, to wait a month is asking too much. He had been a part of a program for 25 years, did not go for 6 months because his mother had died, and then could not get back in and started the slow downhill trajectory to homelessness. So how can you address, or how will the expanded services that you so kindly are offering help him?
A tough scenario, and one that's way too common. And you know, my email box blows up regularly with these scenarios all day long. There are parts of the world where mental health systems don't really believe in involuntary treatment. And the reason that they work is because the services and the environments are welcoming and healing, calm. And you don't need locks and you don't need involuntary care. In a perfect world, that would be the direction that this department wants to go. And that is where this department wants to go. In terms of the reality of today, and the fact that there's so many people who are suffering in isolation and refuse care, many times because they've been traumatized by the system, there are certain things that we have to kind of do, which is that we're forced to be more paternalistic than we would want to be, rather than relying upon people to embrace their autonomy and their freedom and to engage in care. I've talked now probably too many times about a team that's being expanded, which is called the Home Team, which actually works very closely with AOT. And their specific charge is to engage with homeless that have serious mental illness and are basically refusing care, and to develop the type of trusting relationship and to deliver services when they're accepted in the street until that dynamic, that resistant dynamic is broken and they can engage in care. That can't work in some cases, and we are constrained by what's called LPS law in terms of involuntary treatment. You know, and I'll tell you right now that there are There are super bright, caring, lovely people who would say that involuntary treatment is inhumane and that you're not respecting civil liberties. And we just tried this last year to modify LPS law, and it didn't fly. And I think it didn't fly because I think we can do better. I think we have to look at the reform more comprehensively. And we need to make sure that we've got the resources aligned so that if you're going to give someone, if you're going to involuntarily treat someone, there's dedicated resources all day long with the goal of facilitating their recovery and making a conservatorship unnecessary. So that's where we want to go. I don't have a simple answer for you, and I can tell you that the paternalist autonomous argument is one of the most heated argument in our field. And I also can't tell you how many times I got, and many people who were working on this with me got kicked in the head around recognizing that there are people dying in the streets who have serious mental illness and we're allowing it to happen. Totally unacceptable. Destiny, you cut me off.
Oh, I really don't know how to say, but anyway, no, I'm not cutting you off. We have Reba with the final closing, and then Dr. Sherin, whatever else you would like to cover, we're gonna allow you to cover, because you know I would never do that to you. And so Reba, thank you.
Rita, I'm really sorry. I have a call with a hospital network that I'm trying to negotiate new hospitals.
Actually, truly, Dr. Sherin, really wasn't to address you, it was to address you.
I got a 3:30, I got 1 minute to have no, please. I'm just saying that I gotta go. I just thought this was great.
Give it up again, you guys. So here's what I want to say. You know, first I want to apologize because I believe that earlier today I should have talked about the Service Area Advisory Committee meetings. And currently, as we are, where we're seated now is in Service Area 4, that meets every third Thursday of the month at 1:30 at 550 South Vermont. And I believe it's on the second floor. But most importantly, General Jeff, I would like your support, or the support of whoever has the contact information, to ensure that everyone who signed in actually does receive the information about the Service Area Advisory Committee meetings. I also noticed that there are several people who are here across the county, that everyone that's inside of this room or attended this event today did not actually reside or work in this service area. So Dr. Sherin had mentioned earlier about the 8 service areas. What I want to say to you is this. Today was a very unique event. It happened with Dr. Sherin being present and many other important staff who are present here taking information, as well as commission and representatives from the supervisor's office, Margaret Thomas. But this is what I want to say. This does not end here. And this is something in which we can begin to create under the Service Area Advisory Committee meetings, which is kind of tossed out there around your DMH. So I want to encourage you all to find the service area in which you live, work, or play in, and attend those meetings so that we can begin to grow in the area of stakeholder engagement. It's critical. We cannot allow ourselves to believe that we can just come in places like this and have these conversations when we have the power by the number of people and voices to make the difference and to be and see the changes that are necessary for those of us who are utilizing services, for those who are providing the services, as well as for those who are family members or caretakers to those, and our contract agencies. So what is happening with the Department of Mental Health is that, and this is my interpretation of what I read, that it's being flattened, that it is broad and roomy, and that what happens with the service or the delivery of services depend upon us. That our voices can really make the difference. So it's all about stakeholder engagement. What is it about? Stakeholder engagement. So I encourage you to join us. And again, General Jeff, I want to make sure I get the information to you about all those services so that you can send that out broadly. Thank you.
Another hand for we're winding this down. Unfortunately, as Dr. Sherin said, he had to, go handle some business. He's not just about talk, he's about the action. And so, unfortunately, I really wanted to wrap this up and close this thing appropriately, but, duty calls. Right now, I want to lift up the Skid Row folks that spoke, Don Garza, excellent. Big Joe, excellent. Minister Victoria, excellent. Christine, TK, Crucial, Danny Park, starting the Skid Row Coffee. I mean, there's a lot of energy here in Skid Row that we can build on, and we are building on. And so the fact of just everyone that spoke, everyone that attended, we're very, very, very pleased. Thank you all for coming. I also like to say, I want to lift up and acknowledge that Stacy DeCleese from the Mental Health Commission. Thank you for sitting through this entire meeting. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the Skid Row tour with me personally for 2-3 hours, whatever it was recently. Thank you, Kathleen Austria from Supervisor Marguerite Thomas's office for sitting through this entire meeting. There are still refreshments in the back. We still have networking opportunities. I'm here to speak to any and everyone after this meeting is over. And with that ado, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for coming.